My mom cut me out of my father's will, saying I'd abandoned the family for my career. I walked away and didn't look back. Years later, her perfect life fell apart and she ended up in a hospital bed alone. The dining room had always intimidated me. Crystal chandeliers worth more than my yearly salary hung overhead, casting fractured light across mahogany furniture that cost enough to fund a small college education. My mother sat at the head of the table like a monarch surveying her kingdom, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the leather portfolio containing my late father's will. "Jessica," she said, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension she'd perfected over 30 years of country club luncheons. "Your father and I discussed this extensively before his passing." I cut into my overcooked chicken, keeping my expression neutral. My younger brother Marcus sat across from me smirking into his wine glass. Golden boy Marcus, who dropped out of 2 colleges and somehow still remained the favorite. My older sister Diane picked at her salad, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. We both agreed. Mom continued sliding the will toward me, that the estate should go to those who truly appreciated family values, those who stayed close, who prioritized family over career. The implication hit like a slap. I'd moved to Chicago 6 years ago for medical school, then stayed for my residency in pediatric oncology. Apparently saving children's lives made me the black sheep. I scanned the document. The beach house in Malibu, the one where Dad taught me to swim, went to Marcus. The investment portfolio worth roughly $3 million would be split between Marcus and Diane. Mom retained the primary residence and Dad's life insurance payout. My name appeared exactly once in a clause specifically stating I was to receive nothing. "You abandoned us," Mom said flatly. "You chose strangers over your own blood." My fork clattered against the plate. "I became a doctor. I help sick kids. You left." She placed her hand firmly on the will, her diamond rings catching the light. She looked me straight in the eye with an expression I'd never seen before. Pure, calculated cruelty. "You won't get a single cent." Something inside me crystallized in that moment. Not anger, not hurt, just perfect cold clarity. "All right." I smiled, feeling a strange sense of liberation wash over me. "Then don't expect a single cent from me either." I slowly set my fork and knife down and stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. The sound seemed to echo in the sudden silence. "Jessica," Diane started, but I was already walking toward the door. "Where do you think you're going?" Mom's voice had an edge of panic now. "We haven't finished dinner." I turned back, still smiling. "I have a flight back to Chicago in 3 hours. I took time off work to be here to mourn Dad properly with family, but I can see that was a mistake." Marcus laughed. "Always so dramatic, Jesse." "Enjoy the money, Marcus. Try to make it last longer than your last inheritance from Grandma." That one landed. He'd blown through $50,000 in 6 months. Mom's face flushed red. "After everything we've done for you, you paid for 2 years of undergraduate before I got scholarships. I covered the rest myself. Medical school, all loans. You didn't even come to my graduation." I picked up my purse. "But that's fine. I never asked for anything. I certainly won't start now." I walked out of that house and didn't look back. The Uber driver who picked me up asked if I was okay. I must have looked shaken. I told him I was fine, just needed to get to the airport. He nodded and turned up the radio, some country song about family and roots and coming home. I almost laughed at the irony. At the airport, I sat in a bar nursing a gin and tonic I didn't really want. My phone buzzed constantly. Diane mostly. A few texts from Marcus that ranged from apologetic to defensive to outright hostile. Nothing from Mom, of course. She'd said everything she needed to say at that table. I blocked all their numbers and boarded my flight. Chicago welcomed me back with freezing rain and gray skies. Perfect. My apartment felt smaller than I remembered, more cramped. Or maybe I just felt the weight of everything more acutely now. I'd lived here for 3 years, built a life here, but suddenly it felt temporary, like I was playing house in someone else's home. Work became my refuge and my obsession. I picked up extra shifts, volunteered for the cases no one else wanted, the tough ones, the heartbreaking ones. There was a 7-year-old named Emma Rodriguez with a relapsed neuroblastoma. Her prognosis was guarded, and we were trying an experimental protocol. I spent hours at her bedside talking to her parents, adjusting medications, holding Emma's hand through the worst of the pain and nausea. "You don't have to stay," her mother told me one night around midnight. We know you have other patients. I'm exactly where I need to be, I said and meant it. Because here in this sterile hospital room with its beeping monitors and medicinal smells, things made sense. Cause and effect treatment and outcome. I could measure progress in lab values and imaging results. Unlike family where love apparently came with asterisks and conditional clauses I'd never fully understood, my colleagues noticed the change in me. Dr. Raymond Kowalski, one of the senior attendings, pulled me aside after a particularly grueling case conference. Jessica, you're burning yourself out. I've seen it happen before. You're taking on too much. I can handle it. That's not the point. He studied me with those sharp blue eyes that miss nothing. Something happened. You went to California for your father's funeral and came back different. People change. They do, but not usually this fast and not usually this destructively. He crossed his arms. You're one of the best residents I've trained. Don't destroy yourself trying to prove something. I'm not proving anything. I'm doing my job. You're hiding in your job. There's a difference. I wanted to argue to tell him he was wrong, but Raymond had a way of seeing through people's defenses. It's what made him such a good doctor and such an infuriating mentor. My family decided I wasn't worth being part of the family anymore, I said finally. So I'm building a life where that doesn't matter. By working yourself to death. By focusing on what I can control. I can't control whether my mother loves me. I can control whether Emma Rodriguez responds to treatment. Raymond sighed. You know it doesn't work that way. You can't save every patient, Jessica. And you can't use your patience to fill whatever hole your family left. Watch me. He didn't push further, but I could feel his concern following me through the hallways. 3 weeks after the dinner, I got a call from my father's lawyer, Howard Brennan, a man I'd met exactly twice in my life. He wanted to discuss some paperwork. Your mother's attorney sent over the finalized estate documents. I need you to sign some forms acknowledging receipt of the will and confirming you're not contesting it. I'm not contesting anything. Good. Good. These things can get messy. Family disputes over money. He trailed off. For what it's worth, Dr. Chen, your father spoke very highly of you. I think he would have wanted things handled differently, but they weren't handled differently. No, they weren't. He paused. The forms will be in your email within the hour. Just sign and return them. I hung up and stared at my apartment wall, the same wall I've been staring at for weeks now in between shifts. I'd barely decorated this place. A few photos from medical school, my diplomas, some generic art prints I picked up at Target. Nothing that said home, nothing that said Jessica. Maybe that was the problem. I'd spent so long becoming Dr. Chen pediatric oncology resident that I'd forgotten how to be just Jessica. Or maybe Jessica had never really existed outside of the roles other people needed her to play. Daughter, sister, doctor. The forms arrived. I skimmed them legal jargon about estate distribution and inheritance rights and signed with angry, jagged strokes. There. Done. Officially not part of the family. My friend Alicia from residency invited me out for drinks that weekend. We ended up at a dive bar in Wicker Park, the kind of place with sticky floors and cheap beer and a jukebox that only played songs from the 90s. You look like hell, Alicia said, ever the diplomat. Thanks, you're glowing. I'm engaged and in love and planning a wedding. Of course I'm glowing. She sipped her beer. What happened in California? You've been weird since you got back. I told her everything. The will, the dinner, the way my mother had looked at me like I was nothing. Alicia listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker. That's some serious shit, she said finally. Yep. Like next-level family dysfunction. I'm aware. So what are you going to do about it? What can I do? I signed the papers. I'm done. Alicia shook her head. I don't mean legally, I mean emotionally. You can't just bottle this up and pretend it doesn't hurt. I'm not pretending anything. You're working 80-hour weeks and living on coffee in spite. That's not healthy. It's residency. Everyone works 80-hour weeks. Not like you. You're using work to avoid dealing with this. She leaned forward. Look, I get it. Family trauma sucks. My dad walked out when I was 12. But you can't just run from it forever. I'm not running. I'm focusing on what matters. Jess, you matter. Your feelings matter. You can't just decide they don't because acknowledging them is inconvenient. I finished my beer and ordered another and another. By the end of the night, I was drunk enough to cry in the bathroom, Alicia holding my hair back as I sobbed into the toilet about mothers who didn't love their daughters and fathers who died before fixing their mistakes. "Let it out," Alicia murmured. "Just let it all out." The next morning, hungover and miserable, I dragged myself to the hospital for rounds. Sophie was having a good day. Thank God she'd regained some color, and her labs were trending in the right direction. Her parents looked less exhausted, more hopeful. "She asked about you yesterday," Mrs. Martinez said. "Wanted to know when her favorite doctor was coming back." "I'm not her favorite. She just likes that I bring her stickers." "She likes that you care." Mr. Martinez put his arm around his wife. "A lot of the doctors here are great at medicine, but you're great at seeing her as Sophie, not just a patient." Their words hit harder than they should have, because wasn't that exactly what Mom had accused me of, choosing strangers over family? But these strangers saw me, valued me, in ways my own mother refused to. I spent extra time with Sophie that day reading her favorite book about a brave princess who fought dragons. She fell asleep halfway through, her small hands still clutching mine. "Thank you," Mrs. Martinez whispered, "for everything you do." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. This was enough, I told myself. This had to be enough. The fourth week after the dinner, I started seeing a therapist. Dr. Ellen Woodward, recommended by the hospital's physician wellness program. I'd resisted at first. Therapy felt like admitting defeat. But after the crying in the bar incident even, I had to acknowledge I wasn't handling things well. "Tell me about your family," Dr. Woodward said in our first session. I laughed bitterly. "That's going to take the full hour." It took 3 sessions just to cover the basics. My childhood spent trying to be perfect enough, smart enough, worthy enough. Dad's quiet support that never quite translated into defending me against Mom's expectations. Marcus's golden boy status despite his constant failures. Diane's passive complicity in everything. "Your mother's love was conditional," Dr. Woodward observed, "and you spent your life trying to meet conditions that kept changing. I guess that's not a guess, Jessica. That's a pattern. And now when you finally achieved something remarkable, becoming a doctor, saving lives, she's moved the goalposts again. Now it's not about achievement, it's about physical proximity and traditional family structures. So what do I do about it? What do you want to do? I want it not to matter." I leaned back in the chair. "I want to not care that my mother chose my screw-up brother over me. I want to not feel like I'm 12 years old again, desperately trying to make her proud." "But you do care." "But I do care." The admission felt like failure. And I hate that I care. I hate that I still want her approval even after everything. That's not weakness, Jessica. That's being human. We're hardwired to want our parents' love, especially our mothers. Even when they don't deserve it, deserving doesn't factor into it. It's not rational. It's emotional, primal. You can't logic your way out of wanting your mother's love any more than you can logic your way out of needing oxygen. That session ended with me crying again, but it felt different this time, cleaner somehow, like lancing a wound. I continued seeing Dr. Woodward weekly, slowly unpacking years of family dysfunction. It wasn't easy, but it helped me understand that my mother's rejection wasn't a reflection of my worth. It was a reflection of her own limitations. Weeks passed. I threw myself into work, which wasn't difficult. The oncology ward demanded everything I had and then some. Emma Rodriguez's experimental protocol was showing promising results but required constant monitoring. The hospital administration wanted budget cuts that would gut our program. I fought meetings during the day and reviewed case files at night in my small apartment. Then Diane broke the silence. She showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning without warning, looking haggard and older than her 38 years. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me into my living room. "You could have called. You blocked my number, all our numbers." She sat on my couch uninvited. "Jessica, this has gone on long enough." "I disagree. I think it's going exactly how Mom wanted." "She's miserable. She cries all the time. She keeps asking about you." Something cruel in me felt satisfied by that. "Good." Diane's eyes widened. "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" She looked me in the eye and told me I was worth nothing to this family, So forgive me if I don't care about her feelings now. She's our mother. She's your mother. She made it very clear I'm just some ungrateful stranger who happened to grow up in her house. I crossed my arms. Why are you really here, Diane? She looked down at her hands. Things are bad. Really bad. Marcus put most of his inheritance into some risky investment scheme, cryptocurrency and penny stocks. It crashed. He lost almost everything. That's unfortunate. He's talking about bankruptcy. And Mom, she's spending money like water redecorating the house, taking trips, buying stuff she doesn't need. I think she's depressed or something. Again, not my problem. Jess, please, we're a family. No, I said quietly. We're not. Family doesn't do what you all did to me. Family doesn't sit silently while their mother cuts out their sister. You didn't say one word, Diane. Not one word in my defense. She started crying. I know. I was a coward. I didn't want to make waves. Greg and I were buying the house, and I thought if I stayed on Mom's good side, you'd keep your inheritance. I get it. Self-interest. At least you're honest about it now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Your apology doesn't fix anything. It doesn't give me back my relationship with Dad before he died. It doesn't undo Mom's words. I walked to the door. I think you should leave. Jessica. Leave, please. She left, still crying. I closed the door and stood there, shaking, adrenaline flooding my system. Part of me wanted to call her back, to forgive her, to pretend everything could go back to normal. But normal had been toxic. Normal had been me constantly trying to earn love that should have been freely given. I called Alicia instead. Emergency margaritas, she asked. Emergency margaritas. We met at our favorite Mexican place, the one with strong drinks and questionable decor but excellent guacamole. I told her about Diane's visit. So they're running out of money and suddenly remember you exist, Alicia said. How convenient. Diane claims Mom is asking about me, crying. Manipulative much. Maybe, or maybe she actually regrets it. Does it matter if she regrets it? Would that change anything? I thought about that. I don't know. Part of me wants her to suffer, wants her to understand how much she hurt me, but another part just wants, I don't know, closure, peace. You're allowed to be angry, Jess. You're allowed to not forgive her. But what if holding on to anger is just hurting me? What if forgiveness isn't about her at all, but about me letting go? Alicia sipped her margarita thoughtfully. I think there's a difference between forgiveness and reconciliation. You can forgive someone, let go of the anger for your own peace without letting them back into your life. Forgiveness doesn't mean giving them the power to hurt you again. When did you get so wise? Therapy. Lots of therapy and expensive self-help books. She grinned. But seriously, you need to figure out what you want, not what they want, not what your mom wants. What do you, Jessica Chen, need to be okay? What did I need? The question haunted me for days. I needed to save my patients. I needed to be good at my job. I needed to prove I'd made the right choice in becoming a doctor, moving to Chicago, building a life separate from my toxic family dynamics. But underneath all that, whispered a voice I'd been ignoring. I needed to matter to the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. Emma Rodriguez's treatment was progressing well. She'd responded better than expected to the experimental protocol. Her latest scan showed significant tumor reduction. I just finished reviewing her labs when I stepped into the hallway to call the attending physician with an update. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Dr. Chen? The voice was unfamiliar, professional. This is Grace Mercy Hospital in Sacramento. Your mother, Patricia Chen, was admitted 3 hours ago. She's listed you as her emergency contact. My stomach dropped. What happened? Severe stroke, right hemisphere. She's stable now, but the damage is extensive. We need to discuss long-term care options. I sat in the dark, phone pressed to my ear, mind racing. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. The universe delivering poetic justice, but I just felt tired. I'll be on the first flight out. The nurse hesitated. Dr. Chen, you should know there are significant decisions to be made. Financial decisions. Your brother and sister were here earlier, but they left when we discussed payment arrangements. Of course they did. I arrived in Sacramento by noon. Mom lay in the ICU, half her face slack tubes and wires connecting her to machines that beeped rhythmically. She looked smaller, somehow fragile. The fierce woman who had ruled our family with an iron fist had been reduced to this. A doctor met me outside her room. Dr. Patterson, according to his badge, he looked exhausted. Your mother will survive, but she'll need extensive rehabilitation. Speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy. She'll likely regain some function, but full recovery is unlikely at her age. She'll need assistance with daily activities for the foreseeable future. What about her insurance? He grimaced. She has basic coverage, but it won't come close to covering what she needs. We're talking residential care facility costs of $8,000 to $10,000 monthly. Medicare will cover some, but the gap is substantial. I did the math automatically. Roughly $70,000 annually minimum. Where are my siblings? They left contact information but made it clear they couldn't assist financially. His tone suggested what he thought of that decision. I found Marcus and Diane in the hospital cafeteria, both looking miserable. There she is, Marcus said without enthusiasm. St. Jessica come to save the day. I sat down across from them. The doctor says Mom needs long-term care. Diane wouldn't meet my eyes. We can't afford it. Jess Marcus is drowning in debt from his bad investments, and Greg and I just bought the new house. We're stretched thin. The beach house, I said. Dad's investment portfolio. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. The portfolio's mostly gone. Bad investments on my end. The beach house has a reverse mortgage we didn't know about. After settling that there's maybe $100,000 left total and that needs to be split between Diane and me for the will. I stared at him. You gambled away over $1 million in weeks. It wasn't gambling. They were investments calculated risks that didn't pan out. His defensiveness was palpable. No, it's really not. I stood up. Mom named you both as her power of attorney, right? They nodded. Then handle it. I have patients in Chicago who actually need me. Diane grabbed my arm. Jess, please. You're a doctor. You make good money. And I have $400,000 in student loans, but that's beside the point. I pulled free. Mom made her choice. She looked me in the eye and told me I wasn't family, so this isn't my problem. I walked away, ignoring Diane's pleading and Marcus's curses. But I didn't leave Sacramento. Instead, I checked into a Holiday Inn and spent the evening on my laptop. I reviewed Mom's medical records, consulted with colleagues via email, researched rehabilitation facilities. Professional habit, I told myself, just gathering information. The next morning, I returned to the hospital. Mom was awake, her left eye focusing on me with obvious effort. She tried to speak, but only garbled sounds emerged. I pulled the chair to her bedside. Don't try to talk. You've had a significant stroke. Right side weakness, aphasia, standard complications. Tears leaked from her eyes. Marcus and Diane can't afford your care. They've already spent or committed Dad's estate. You'll be transferred to a county facility in 72 hours unless alternative arrangements are made. Her good hand clutched at the blanket, desperate. I sat there for a long moment watching her struggle. This woman who dismissed my entire life's work, who'd cut me out of my father's legacy because I dared to pursue my own path, who taught me that love was conditional, transactional. County facilities aren't great, I continued clinically. Understaffed, overworked. You'll get basic care, but rehabilitation will be minimal. You'll likely remain at this level of function permanently. With more tears, fear in her eyes. There is another option, I said slowly. There's a rehabilitation center in Chicago near my hospital, top-tier facility. They've had excellent outcomes with stroke patients. I could arrange a transfer, and I could oversee your care personally. Hope flickered in her expression. But here's what's going to happen if I do this. You're going to sell the house. Every penny goes into a trust for your medical care. When that runs out, and it will, I'll cover the difference. But you'll live near me. You'll follow the treatment plan I design, and you'll never, ever question my choices again. I leaned forward. You wanted me to understand that family is conditional, that love has terms and requirements. Well, congratulations. I learned that lesson perfectly. So these are my terms, Mom. Take them, or spend whatever time you have left in a county facility watching daytime television and being bathed by rotating staff who don't know your name. She tried to speak again, manage something that might have been please. I'm not doing this because I forgive you. I'm not doing this because you deserve it. I'm doing this because I'm a doctor and because Dad would have wanted me to. But make no mistake, this is charity, not family obligation. You made sure I had no obligations months ago. I stood to leave. Her good hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength. She pulled me closer, and I could see her struggling, fighting to form words. Finally, painfully, sorry. One word slurred, barely intelligible but unmistakable. I felt something crack inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of something. We'll see, I said quietly, and gently removed her hand. The logistics took 2 weeks to arrange. I contacted the rehabilitation center, coordinated with her medical team, arranged for medical transport. Marcus and Diane helped with the house sale, both subdued and grateful I had stepped in. Marcus cornered me the day before Mom's transfer. I'm sorry, he said, about everything, the will, the money, the way we treated you. You treated me exactly how Mom taught you to. Family is what you can get from people, right? He flinched. That's not fair. Neither was leaving your mother in a county facility because she'd become inconvenient. But life isn't fair, Marcus. I learned that in the oncology ward. Kids with cancer learn it every single day. What do you want from us? Nothing. Literally nothing. I met his eyes. That's the difference between us. I don't need anything from you. I never did. Mom's rehabilitation took 10 months. The facility was expensive but worth every penny. She regained most of her speech, though she'd never sound quite like herself again. Her right side remained weak, requiring a cane for walking, but she achieved independence in most daily activities. I visited twice weekly, reviewing her progress with the therapy team, adjusting medications, pushing her through exercises when she wanted to quit. Our conversations remained brief and clinical. She'd ask about my work. I'd update her on my patients, keeping details vague for privacy. She never asked about my personal life, and I didn't volunteer information. One evening, about 8 months into her treatment, I arrived to find her crying in her room, not from pain or frustration, but looking at photo albums. Your father took this, she said, pointing to a picture of 7-year-old me covered in sand at the Malibu beach house. You just learned to body surf. You were so proud. I remembered that day, Dad teaching me to read the waves, Mom watching from the beach with Diane and baby Marcus. You were so independent. Even then, she continued, her speech still slightly slurred but comprehensible. You never needed us the way your siblings did. It scared me. So you cut me out of the family. I wanted you to need us to come back. I thought, she closed the album. I thought if you knew there was nothing for you here, you'd fight for it. Fight to be part of the family. That's twisted logic, Mom. I know. She looked up at me. I spent my whole life believing that family was about proximity, about being present. I never understood that family could be bigger than geography, that you could love people from a distance. I was saving children's lives. I know that now. Her voice broke. I was in the ICU before the stroke got bad. There was a little girl in the next bed, maybe 5 years old. Cancer, I think. Her mother never left her side. And I kept thinking that could be Jessica's patient. My daughter saves children like that. She reached for my hand, and I let her take it. I was so wrong, Jessica, about everything. You didn't abandon us. You became exactly who you were meant to be. And I was so busy being angry that you didn't need me that I never told you how proud I was. The words hung between us, years of resentment, of hurt, of feeling inadequate despite my achievements. I needed you at my medical school graduation, I said quietly. I needed you to call and ask how my first day of residency went. I needed you to understand that choosing a career that saves lives wasn't choosing strangers over family. I know, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't erase the will, Mom. It doesn't erase you literally telling me I wasn't worthy of being part of the family. No, she agreed. It doesn't. But maybe it's a start. I thought about the little girl she'd mentioned. Emma Rodriguez had completed treatment last month, clear scans. Her mother had hugged me so hard, I couldn't breathe, crying and thanking God and me in the same sentence. That's why I did this job, for moments like that. But I missed something along the way. I convinced myself that professional purpose was enough, that I didn't need family validation. But sitting here with my mother, seeing genuine remorse in her eyes, I realized I'd been lying to myself. It had mattered. It still mattered. It's a start, I agreed finally. 2 months later, Mom was discharged to an assisted living apartment near my place. She could manage independently but had support staff available if needed. We fell into a routine of Sunday dinners at her apartment. Sometimes Diane would video call from California. Marcus less frequently but occasionally. The first dinner was awkward. Mom had cooked with some assistance from the facility chef, and it was burned and overseasoned, and nothing like the elaborate meals from my childhood. I never actually cooked much, she admitted. Your father did most of it, or we had help. I'm learning. I took another bite of the hockey puck chicken. It's terrible, she laughed. The sound startled both of us. It really is, isn't it truly awful? Next week I'll just order Chinese. Much better plan. We ate the terrible meal and talked about my week, a successful surgery on a 6-year-old with neuroblastoma, a funding breakthrough for the ward, normal work stuff I'd never shared with her before. What made you want pediatric oncology, she asked. That must be heartbreaking work. I thought about how to answer. Because sometimes you save them. And the ones you can't save deserve someone who will fight like hell anyway. They deserve dignity and the best possible care, and someone who sees them as whole people, not just a diagnosis. She nodded slowly. That's what you've given me these past months. Dignity. Care. Even when I didn't deserve it. You had a stroke, Mom. You deserve medical care. But you didn't have to be the one providing it. You could have walked away. I could have. A part of me had wanted to that vindictive piece that wanted to prove I didn't need them, that their rejection hadn't mattered. Dad would have been disappointed if I had, I said. Your father would be incredibly proud of you. He always was. You know, he argued with me about the will, told me I was being cruel and stupid. I wouldn't listen. This was new information. He argued with you for weeks. He wanted to split everything equally, maybe even give you more since you'd never asked for anything. But I was so angry, so hurt that you'd left. I made him change it. Told him it was that or I'd contest whatever he put in writing. She looked ashamed. He died before we could fix it. Heart attack came so fast. A weight I hadn't known I was carrying lifted slightly. Dad hadn't chosen to exclude me. That mattered more than I'd expected. Why didn't Marcus or Diane tell me? Because they didn't know we fought about it. I made sure of that. She pushed food around her plate. I've been a terrible mother to you, Jessica, but if you'll let me, I'd like to try being better. Not perfect. I'm probably too old and stubborn for that, but better. I looked at this woman who'd caused me so much pain, who'd made me question my worth, who taught me that family love could be weaponized. But I also saw someone who'd been humbled by circumstances, who'd been forced to confront her own mistakes, who was genuinely trying to change. Better sounds good, I said. We've been doing better for a year now. Mom volunteers at my hospital reading to the kids in the oncology ward. She can't do much physically, but the children love her. She tells them stories about growing up in San Francisco, about my dad, about her 3 stubborn children. Last month, Emma Rodriguez came in for her 6-month follow-up after completing treatment. Still in remission scans, completely clear. She saw Mom in the hallway and ran to hug her, asking for another story about the mermaid princess. Mom makes up these elaborate fairy tales that the kids adore. That's one of yours, Mom asked after Emma skipped away. One of mine. You saved her life. Modern medicine saved her life. I just helped. Mom squeezed my hand. You're too humble. You've saved a lot of lives, Jessica, including mine. You had a stroke, the medical team. I'm not talking about the stroke. She met my eyes. I'm talking about after. You saved me from becoming bitter and alone. You saved me from dying without understanding what really mattered. That took more courage than any medical procedure. The will, she continued. I made a new one. Everything's split 3 ways now. But I want you to know you don't need it. You never needed any of it. You built your own life, your own worth. I'm just sorry it took me so long to see that. I could have handled things differently too. I was angry and hurt, and I wanted you to feel what I felt. You had every right. Maybe, but I also had a choice in how I responded. I almost let you rot in a county facility. Almost, she emphasized. But you didn't. That's who you are, sweetheart. Someone who does the right thing even when it's hard, even when people don't deserve it. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Through the window I could see the hospital across the street, my work, my purpose. But sitting here with my mother, I realized that purpose could expand, could include things I convinced myself didn't matter. Sunday dinners, I said. Let's keep doing these every week. Every week. But next week I'm cooking. She laughed. Thank God. My cooking hasn't improved much. I hugged her goodbye, feeling her fragile frame against me. She'd never be the mother I'd wanted as a child. Too much had happened. Too many years of distance and hurt. But maybe she could be the mother I needed now. Flawed, trying, present. Driving home, I thought about revenge and how sweet I'd imagined it would be. Watching karma deliver justice. Seeing the people who'd hurt me get what they deserved. But real revenge, I'd learned, isn't about punishment. It's about refusing to let someone else's cruelty define you. It's about building a life so full and meaningful that their rejection becomes irrelevant. It's about having the strength to show mercy when you'd be justified in withholding it. My mother placed her hand on that will and tried to break me. Instead, she taught me exactly how strong I was. Strong enough to walk away. Strong enough to come back. Strong enough to choose compassion over vindication. The nightmare that struck weeks after our confrontation wasn't just my mother's stroke. The nightmare was realizing how close I'd come to losing the chance at reconciliation. How easily I could have let bitterness consume me the way it had consumed her. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to become the person who hurt you. Sometimes it's proving that you're bigger than their worst moments. Sometimes it's extending grace when you could choose cruelty. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma's mother. 2 years cancer-free today. Celebrating with her favorite doctor. Thank you for everything. I smiled and sent back congratulations. This was my life. These were my choices, and I'd make them again every single time. Even the choice to save my mother, the woman who tried to tell me I wasn't worth saving. Especially that choice.